on Leeds. How exciting. It looks like I finally might be able to stop using the coronavirus extraordinary episode series because we might finally be out of it. Let's all keep our collective fingers crossed, keep our hands clean, keep staying at home until we're finally allowed out. How exciting. This week, as episode, I have Tony Macaluso, who is the co-director of Chapel FM and heads Together Productions, and Peter Spafford, Chapel FM Director of Words, producing an annual Writing on Air festival, and they tell me all about that, how Chapel FM started, how lockdown in the beginning was not necessarily a bad thing for them because they had lots of renovation work to do on the actual building. They were very inspiring to talk to. And also, you really must go and check out their Writing on Air festival. I will put links in the podcast. There's all sorts of great programmes on there, and I'm pretty sure there's something there for everyone. So yeah, have a listen, enjoy. On this episode of the coronavirus extraordinary episodes of Light on Leeds, I have two guests. I have Tony Macaluso, who is the co-director of Chapel FM and heads Together Productions, and Peter Spafford, who is the Chapel FM Director of Words, and he is producing the annual Writing on Air festival, which begins this evening. Thank you so much for joining me, both of you.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Hazel.
And so can you tell me a little bit about Chapel FM, how it started and what kind of things that you do there?
Fantastic. Well, Peter, do you want to have a go first since you've been involved long before me?
Well, Chapel FM, we're an arts centre. We're the only arts centre in East Leeds. Really, I suppose the beginning was East Leeds FM, which is a Heads Together production. Heads Together oversee it. But East Leeds FM started in a school locally in East Leeds back in 2004, and we were originally, our home was at the back of some shops at Bogger Hill in Ramshead Hill in Seacroft, and then we started to use this old Methodist chapel, which was falling down. Actually, there were pigeons flying in through the roof, and we did some stuff there, and eventually raised some money to renovate and completely adapt the building for our use. So we're now not just a radio station based there, but we have a theatre, and now we're expanded even more now. So we've got a fantastic kind of rehearsal, extra performance space, a cafe. We have a little bookshop. It's a really wonderful space just off Seacroft Green, and we're an arts centre in the sense that we're a community resource. People come and use us to do all sorts of stuff, but we work a lot with young people, training young people in all aspects of radio.
That's amazing. And so have you been involved from the start, Peter?
No, I joined in about 2009, so I've been there over 10 years, but handling mainly the spoken word aspects, so poetry, radio drama, all kinds of some wordy stuff, really. And I run writing groups and also lead a weekly program rather, called Love the Words, which is exactly what it says on the tin. So we do lots of stuff, not just word stuff, of course, but generally speaking, we have a very flourishing, very dedicated team of professional people, but also volunteers. Producing programs ranging from local journalism right through to music, live music, and so on, and an open mic every month.
You sound like an absolutely fantastic artistic hub. So, Tony, how did you get involved?
Well, so as co-director, I have my co-director, my fellow co-director, Adrian Sinclair, was very much the founder, working with Peter and others, Katie Haley, who's been involved for 20 years now. Well, I moved to Leeds a little over 2 years ago from Chicago, and I'd worked a lot in radio and oral history and community theater, and came to the fine town of Leeds without knowing for sure what I was going to do. And the very first weekend I was here, I had dinner with a friend who was a friend of a friend in Chicago, and said, "Oh, you're interested in radio and community arts, you should visit this Chapel FM place." So I took the bus out to an event way out to Seacroft from the other end of town. Thought it was amazing. Thought, well, I'll definitely be back there. And then a few weeks later, I saw they were looking for a co-director to help run the place. So, and then things worked out nicely, and I became co-director about a little over 2 years ago now, and have been able to help keep things growing in different ways and chasing after all the great projects Peter was just describing, and trying to map out plans for the future. And then COVID came along, and we learned all sorts of new ways to make radio in lockdown and remotely and doing things outside. So it's been an adventure.
So, what made you decide to come to Leeds, Tony?
Well, as marvelous as Leeds is, I didn't come here just totally on a whim. My wife works at the university, so she studies refugees and migration, and she got a great job as a lecturer at the university. So I followed along with our son Julio, and that's what brought me here. And
here you are.
Yep.
And so you must have, both of you, seen all sorts of great projects come together in your time that you've been there. Is it really heartwarming and inspirational to be able to see what great art can come out of the city when they have a service provided like yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Peter.
Well, yeah. I mean, I love this city. I'm a relative newcomer here. I've only been here about 25 years, but yeah, I love working at Chapel FM, and I hope we've done some good stuff over the years, but I'm really looking forward to the future as well. And radio is one of the things that has flourished. I think just generally, culturally, audio has been meant a lot to people in this lockdown period, and I think as an arts centre, as a radio station, we've adapted as well as we possibly can during this period, and hopefully helped a bit, really, with our local community, particularly. During the early days of lockdown last year, we had a sort of a 3-hour show every morning. We were staying close, and that was a really hyper-local show. We even had something called the shopping forecast, where we Elliot was out in Tesco's, kind of 8 o'clock in the morning, and he would report on whether there was, toilet paper or flour. It was a very, very local show. I mean, that kept going for about 3 or 4 months during the summer. But we've been chucking it out in terms of the stuff we do all the way through. But yeah, I've really been proud of so many projects that we've managed to do over the years at Chapel FM, and I hope we serve our local community well as a community of people who are just interested in culture generally over Leeds, but also beyond Leeds too.
And what when COVID first hit, did that sort of put a spanner in a lot of the projects that you were already on with?
Well, funnily enough, by strange coincidence, that very week, just about a year ago now, that lockdown came to the UK, we were actually planning on moving out of our building for 6 months because we were in the process of expanding and renovating the 1970s church hall attached to it. So we had raised all the money to fix it up and link them together. So we were going to be traveling on the road, yondering, as we called it, across Leeds. So we were going to be setting up in the Kirkgate Market in the city centre and working at one of the working men's clubs in East Leeds. So we were already planning to be out of the building. So in an odd way, that made it a little easier to pivot into doing the things that Peter was describing, the remote broadcasts and other projects.
So it kind of worked together in a strange, timely way.
In a funny sort of way, yes, because we were planning to be out of the building for a while anyway. But we did have to, rather heartbreakingly, call off writing on air. Actually, before the national lockdown was called, we just saw it coming and went, nah, we can't do it. So, but we only saw that as a postponement, and that's why we're doing at least one part of writing on air this time in March. It would have happened around the same time last year, but we've been determined to do it. So we are doing it in some form, which I'm really pleased about.
Can you tell me a little bit about that writing for air?
You're right. Writing on air is...
Sorry, writing on air.
No, it's all right. I literally see it as writing, not just writing on the radio, but I like the idea of writing, writing with a sort of implement on the air, as it were, on clouds. But if I could, I would. But no, it's a festival that we've been running over the last 6 or 7 years now, and it's kind of unique, I think, because it's a kind of writing festival, literature festival, but it's on the radio. There aren't many of those around, and so that's the main thing. It's usually 4 days, and it's usually 60 programs or so, and the other thing about it, which I feel is very distinctive, is it makes it different from your other literature festivals, is that all the events, all the programs are created by people who don't normally make radio programs. So they're writers, readers, just literature enthusiasts, people who just like poetry or just want to make some programs with our support. So very early on in the process, people come along, we hold an open meeting. We have a theme usually. We've had voice. That was a theme a few years ago. This one was vision. It was 2020 last year, obviously, so we're thinking 2020 vision, etc. Yeah. So that's what we did there. And it's a great thing because so many people contribute. We usually say about 200 people. Over 200 people contribute in some way to the festival. And obviously we have live events that are over the Writing on Air weekend, usually at the chapel. We haven't been able to do that this time. We usually have much more education. We have schools, 3 or 4 or 5 schools involved, and as I say, all sorts of programs. But we are doing what we had already recorded was in the can. We are broadcasting this weekend, although obviously this podcast may go out later. If it's been and gone, you can access everything on our website that's been broadcast. So there are 35 programs with some live events as well, 2 or 3 workshops and open mics. And the theme is vision. We've got programs ranging from a fascinating history of optical surgery, which has been done for us by a local GP, interviewing consultants on eye surgery and eye treatments, to sort of programs about D.H. Lawrence and mystical visions. So it really is a wide variety of stuff, and we're really happy to be putting it out. And we hope to do a kind of a live Writing on Air follow-up later in the year where we do the stuff that we were going to do in our wonderful radio theatre. So we had some plays, we had some big open mics, all sorts of stuff. But we'll hopefully do that later in the year.
That sounds absolutely fantastic, and I really can't wait to dip in. I had a look at your website just before we started recording, and there are a massive range of different things that you can listen to, which I think is just brilliant. And it's like you say, especially when we've all been locked in, I think listening to podcasts and radio shows and things like that have been like something really great for people to hold on to. And especially when you were talking about, I love the shopping forecast idea. I think it's great because you stuck in locally and seeing, those are the kind of information that you needed to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And people would phone in with all sorts of stuff. Yeah, and we were trying to back in that it seems a long time ago now, but back in a year ago, we were also trying to reach people. We were on FM then. Nobody were on the internet only, but we were on FM, and so that local people who didn't have the internet, particularly older people, could access us, and that was really important to us.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, because I think one of the things that this has all thrown up is the inequality of people's access to technology.
Good, right.
Totally. And when you are organising Writing on Air, in more normal times, I can imagine this all takes an awful lot of organisation. Is it a different kind of organisation that you're having to do now with everybody being distanced?
Well, I suppose it is in a way, but it's obviously much nicer when people can come into the building, and that's what's great about Writing on Air. Normally, it brings a load of people into the building who perhaps wouldn't necessarily meet normally. Writers are quite a solitary bunch of people. But when they get together, they can talk. And it's easier, obviously, to when you can talk to people directly. But no, we've managed and we do what we can do. Tony, I don't know whether you could add to that.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is, for example, today in a few hours, the first broadcast of Writing on Air is a special episode of our Red Kite, which is the regular podcast and radio show we do that's all about young people from especially East Leeds, but anywhere in the city, seeing the world from unexpected points of view. So, for example, a bunch of us will gather up and do a broadcast, a kind of a preview, prelude to the Writing on Air festival, but also the ability to just bring in people from far away as well. Some of the programs include stories and voices of people from far outside of Leeds as well. So, for example, a program that I did about a story about Chicago, about blindness in Chicago, and so we were able to do those interviews. And last year, a year and a half ago, Peter did a fantastic program with celebrating Leeds' relationship with Dortmund, Germany, as twin cities, sister cities. So So yeah, we can both be very, very local sometimes, but also span the world.
And I think the other thing was during the lockdown last year, we also, apart from the shopping forecasts and that very, as I say, very hyper local radio we did. Most days we would have a broadcast with, or certainly most weeks, with a radio station like ours, a sort of sister station in another country. Tony, I remember you did that fantastic interview with an Italian broadcaster. I can't remember the name of the radio station now, but it was absolutely brilliant. And we did. So I think we see our community as being local, Seacroft, East Leeds, citywide, regional, and also international. Because that's the great thing. And also that's one of the things that's happened with having to rely on Zoom, is that people can join us all over the place. And in fact, Writing on Air does have quite an international following, as do some of our local programs. The Red Kite, in fact, has a load of listeners in India, would you believe?
Yeah, I must admit, I was never been bothered about statistics or anything, but once I started podcasting, I really cared. And I find it fascinating when I see the list of countries, especially because my podcast is so specifically Leeds focused. I do have a new series now that widens the light a little further. But yeah, I find that fascinating. And isn't it great? Because it feels like you're part of some big connected thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Writing on Air one year, we had loads of listeners in Peru. I was thinking, why? But anyway, it seems to be fine. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, it's just great to see them, isn't it? And what are your big plans for the future? Can you tell us about any of those?
Yeah, definitely. I'll list a few and then Peter jump in with more. But so, like a lot of organizations, first we're excited about the gradual process of reopening, and in our case, sort of doubly so, triply so, because we have this beautiful new building with a cafe. So we're getting ready we have a cafe manager and food arts worker named Vic, and she's preparing the cafe, not just an ordinary cafe, but a radio arts cafe. So cooking up all kinds of interesting ideas for special recipes that link up with the programs we do. So food from different cultures and even maybe some radio themed cookies and biscuits and other treats. But making that cafe space really a public gathering spot when we're doing live broadcasts and before we do performances in our theater as well. So that's going to be exciting. And also growing food on the allotment behind the chapel that we can use in the cafe. And then over the spring and summer, and this is especially true for especially young people out there listening, or if you know a young person who wants to get involved in writing or music or theater or radio making, we run programs teaching young people. So we'll have some programs later in the spring, and then especially in the summer, a lot of outdoor projects where people can learn how to make radio shows and podcasts. And then we just set for ourselves, even though we imagine we will be open to a certain degree in the late spring, early summer, but we set the middle of September for our big official ribbon cutting reopening festival. So we'll have all kinds of performances. We've got the poet Ian McMillan coming in, great Yorkshire poet, and other artists who will be doing special performances and really just welcoming the community back into the space. We also have an audio storytelling festival we'll be doing in September to bring together really podcast and radio storytellers from across the region just to network and get to know each other. So Hazel, hopefully you can come along and represent Light on Leeds as well for that.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. I've got a huge list of all the things that I can't wait to do when we're free again. But yeah, that would be right up my street.
Yes, and I also really am looking forward to being able to open up the building and to show people really what we've done, because I think it's a very beautiful place. It was before, and now it's even more so. I'm looking forward to using our the space that was the kind of the Methodist Church Hall, but using it for inviting choirs in there, perhaps dance performances. We've had the West Yorkshire Playhouse in there before with their touring productions. Be great to have them in again. To have that cafe, as Tony was saying. Also, I'm really keen to there's nowhere in Leeds where you can find local writers' books. There are so many local writers, local publishers around Leeds and Yorkshire. We're going to hopefully be able to house just some samples of that work in one place where people can borrow and buy local books. So really looking forward to that as well. I'm also looking forward to renewing our connection with Dortmund, and looking forward to 2023. And that was a slightly heartbreaking thing that I was involved with just before lockdown. I was about to take a group of writers and a photographer over to Dortmund. We're going to have a week over there working in a school, working with writers, launching a book. And of course, we all have our disappointments, all of us, from the cancellation of those things. But I'm hoping that we can still do them, and I'm hoping that Chapel will really be a focus for that activity.
Yeah. Can I do two more real quick? I forgot.
Yeah.
Quick ones.
Yeah, of course.
So we also have a project called Union, which is a school for creativity and activism. And Adrian, who I mentioned earlier, co-director with me, leads that up. And it's all about training, really providing support for artists and also activists and getting them together. And we're part of a thing called the Leeds Donut Group, which is a collection of non-city center arts venues. So Hart Center in Headingley and Slunglow Theatre over in Holbeck and others. And the Union Project is just got funding to do a big project to do training for staff, but also artists and activists and volunteers, linking up a bunch of these community centers over the next year. So that's going to be really exciting. And then we're hoping to go to Glasgow in November for the big climate summit happening in Glasgow, the big UN COP26. So our plan is to bring a group of our young broadcasters and writers and musicians up to Glasgow to be members of the media journalists covering that climate summit, and then coming back hopefully with lots of stories and radio features and other creative things.
Wow, that all sounds absolutely just so exciting, and I bet it must sort of help you both get through this awful time, because you've got all these great things to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're a really good team of people. We work very well together. Got Charlotte, who's a writer, but also centre manager. Yeah. Katie, as Tony mentioned, and Sean, our music worker. We've got a new broadcasting worker, and so there's lots to look forward to, and we'll have fun doing it.
Yeah. And we also have an ice cream van. I say we, but it's a group of us. So during lockdown, we teamed up with some of the other Seacroft third sector organizations, LS14 Trust and Fall Into Place Theatre, Seacroft Friends and Neighbors, and started working together on food parcels and medicine and just practical things. And one of the ideas that came out of that was that Seacroft needed an arts radio, mobile ice cream, soul food, traveling dream machine. And so we were able to buy an old vintage ice cream van that's going to start traveling around, starting over Easter break, and giving out fab awards named after the ice lollies. So people from Seacroft can nominate someone who did something great, could be just, in a very local level. And the ice cream van is going to show up, and at their house, they'll know it's coming so they can be ready for it, with some musicians from our Chapel FM Jazz Collective and a stilt walker. And we're going to give people from the community fab thank yous. So some ice cream treats from the ice cream van coming soon.
Oh, what an amazing thing. People will be so looking forward to that.
Oh, it's going to be fun.
So you've both lived in Leeds for some time, Tony around 2 years and Peter, you around 20 years. But I still think that means that you are qualified to answer the 3 questions that I ask every guest.
Okay.
The first one being, what would you say is great about the city of Leeds?
Peter, take it away.
Well, so many things. I think one of the great things is that if you talk to anybody who's been in Leeds for a long time, they still want to be here. They still want to live here. I have lived in cities where people have gone, oh, I should have left years ago. Why didn't I do that? Why have I? In Leeds, you always find people who've been here a while, who were born here, who are still here because they love it. I particularly love Leeds because it has a feeling of a city, in the sense of all the great things a city has. But you can be out of it in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You can drive and you're out in the countryside. I love that. We're so lucky in both those respects. And I lived in Manchester for a while, and you actually have to drive for it seems like hours to get out of all this sort of flat land and drear to get anywhere. I'm sorry for Mancunians listening to this, but I love Leeds in that respect, and it's got everything a city has, and you're out of it into wonderful countryside.
Yeah, great answer.
Yeah, and mine's kind of similar, I would say, which is that, but in particular, discovering some of the less celebrated wild spaces has been really great over the last year. Especially, I live, and well, Peter does too, near Meanwood, so we've got this great wild forest really close by. But even in Seacroft and East Leeds, one of the things we did last summer, especially, was just go out tramping around with some microphones and a whole bunch of teenagers in the wild spaces, especially along the Wykebeck trail, the river that cuts through East Leeds, Seacroft, and Gipton, and just discovering all these great little hidden, tucked away, quite wild spaces, even wrapping around the giant Amazon big shipping center. We did a whole radio broadcast walking around that, looking at the strange juxtapositions between these great wild spaces, and then there's that big symbol of global capitalism smack in the middle of it. It was really, really magical.
I think a lot of people have discovered lots of nice wild places. I really hope one of the things everyone clings on to is remembering how important our parks and wild spaces are.
Yeah.
Completely right. We're very lucky in Leeds with that. I'm indebted to various, big-minded Victorians who also had the wealth to endow in trust and perpetuity some fantastic wild spaces. So we're very lucky.
We are. And if you were forced and had to choose something that you thought was not so great about the city, what would you choose?
Well, for me, it's not a big fault, really. In fact, I think you might say it's a virtue. But we're not very good in Leeds at shouting about how fantastic the place is. I think there's that kind of Leeds thing, which is a kind of modesty, which I really, really like. Again, I lived in Manchester for a while. I don't want to be down on Manchester, but they're very good at shouting about themselves. I think Liverpool is too, but we're not. And it's hard to get somebody from Leeds to go, it's brilliant and it's fantastic. We'll go, yeah, it's all right. That's the way we are. So I think we could probably shout about ourselves a bit more.
Definitely. And what do you think, Tony?
Well, I would say, and I'll mention this briefly, a nice proper subway would be kind of lovely, or a light rail system. But thinking that, I know there's been some attempts over the years, but what I'll say is I sometimes feel like there are these incredible parts of the city, neighborhoods and communities that are actually really close to each other, but that often don't link up the way they could. So, for example, Seacroft, where Chapel FM is based, is really just a short walk from places like Hare Hills and Chapeltown and Richmond Hill. But sometimes it can feel like those parts of the city, they don't intermingle as much as they could. And so different communities. So all the incredible immigrant communities and mixed communities in places like Hare Hills and Chapeltown and Seacroft can feel like they're worlds apart. So, which is one of our goals, is to try to weave them together a little bit more.
Yeah, and that would be great, because people, guests before, have mentioned that it's a great city and you find little pockets of interesting things happening in different areas, but that it would be great if everything was a little bit more joined up. So yeah, I think that would be great work for you to do. And if somebody had been a resident of Leeds for a very long time, would you be able to tell them about something that you would consider to be a hidden gem, but that they might never have heard of?
Well, I don't know if this is that's not unknown, as it were, but I really like Batcliffe Wood, which is a piece of woodland on the side of Beckett Park, and Tony will know this place, but it's you can miss it. You can go out to Beckett Park. Well, you can miss Beckett Park, actually. It's a lovely park, but it's just up on, if you go up from Headingley, really, it's up there on the left, and the bluebells are just extraordinary there. We're coming up in a few weeks' time, but also you get a view right across Leeds, one of the best views. And in fact, if I can have two, another one would be Sugarwell Hill, which is the other side of Meanwood, on the Meanwood Valley, and the views from the top of Sugarwell Hill at night over Leeds are wonderful. So I think those two places I would recommend.
Yeah, great answers. And actually, I've never heard of Backcliff, so that sounds like a good one for me to go and check out. And what about you, Tony?
Well, I'm going to take one again that maybe doesn't seem particularly hidden, but I feel like as I've lived here for a while, it doesn't always get the love that it could and should, and especially some of the less known places within it. So I'm going to actually put a shout out for the Kirkgate Market, especially after the last year when maybe a lot of people haven't been there. And I definitely know that a lot of the people, especially the young people we work with in Seacroft, have hardly ever spent time in there. And it's an amazing resource that Leeds has, this immense, really, really dynamic, full of life Victorian market. And I'm fortunate because on my way out to Chapel FM, I often cut through the market on my journey out to East Leeds. And in particular, some of the stalls tucked away in the back part of the market. And I'll give a particular shout out. I guess maybe my favorite one to stop in at. There's a little Tunisian shop. I should find out the name of the guy who runs it because he's great. And it's some of the best breakfast and lunch that you can get. But in general, I think just especially the stories in the market of just sitting and having time to really talk to the vendors, the people who visit it, because there's so much history there. And hopefully we'll get back in the market at some point later this year and do some broadcasts from down there.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, it's 100% my favourite place in the whole of Leeds. And I feel like when you visit the city centre, if you haven't visited the market, then you haven't really visited the city centre. Like you say, it's just so beautiful, and it's a great mix of people who work in there, and the stalls are amazing. So, yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough because I live close enough for it to be okay, to be able to go to the market a few times during lockdown. And it's sad to see it without as many people in, but it's great to see that it is still being used.
Yeah. In fact, during the little pause in lockdown last summer in August, we did a radio documentary about the pigeons in the Kirkgate Market, which was fascinating because I didn't expect going in that pigeons would be as controversial within the market as perhaps, Brexit or something. The pro-pigeon and the anti-pigeon factions were very, very, it was very strong opinions on either side of the debate about how people felt about pigeons in and around the market. So...
Wow, I'll have to keep an eye out for that. And I always ask guests if they know of a Leeds-based band or musician and a track that you would like to feature. And obviously you guys have got all sorts of people at your fingertips. But Peter, you made an album on Bandcamp from which I've chosen one of the tracks. Can you tell me a little bit about that project?
Yeah, by the way, I didn't nominate myself for this.
I nominated it, yes.
Just to be quite clear about that. But last year, just as lockdown began, Leeds Inspired ran some small grants, and I applied for one of them to write some song portraits. I've been writing poem portraits for years. I've just done some just now with the photographer Lizzie Coombs I've worked with before, of shopkeepers and people in East Leeds. But song portraits, I thought, well, try and write a song about somebody. So I got the grant and did 10 of them, and they were all, I interviewed people, older people without internet access on the phone, and then I wrote a song about them. And so that's the album, and it's called Song Portraits. This one, I think you've chosen Fall Between. Is that right, Hazel?
I have, yes, that's right. Yeah.
Shall I say something about that?
Yes, please.
Well, Fall Between. I talked to a lady called Lizzie. She lives in not far away from me actually, and she is originally Australian, but also has a Irish. She had an Irish mother, and her Irish mum used to sing her Irish songs as a kid. And when Lizzie came to Britain, she wanted to find out about her Irish roots, so she went over to Belfast to try and find her roots there, and she was told that there was this house that her family used to live in. They were renovating the house, and the builders had found a letter underneath the floorboards, which had fallen between the floorboards, and that had an address in County Antrim, and that led her to her cousins, and she renewed that relationship with her Irish heritage, her Irish cousins, and so the song. Is about that. Is all about the things in life that fall between, but those are the wonderful things in life, I think.
Well, it's a fantastic song, and I'm sure everyone is going to really enjoy listening to it. I'll make sure I put all links in the podcast that people can click through and get involved with everything that you're doing and listen to your amazing programs. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming along. What will you be doing with the rest of your afternoon?
We've got radio shows coming up all afternoon and evening. We have our Red Kite show at 5 o'clock. Then we have an open mic and more performances. And then tomorrow we're delivering specially baked cookies with vision themes to some of the writers in the Writing on Air Festival. So it's a busy and exciting weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Is that the same for you, Peter?
Yeah, I think I might have a nap before all that.
I absolutely don't blame you. Best of luck with everything that you're doing, and definitely let me know about your summer activities if I can get involved. I'd love to.
Thanks very much,
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Hazel.
Thank you.
What's happening in this great city? Light on Leeds, we'll tell you. But wait a minute. Light on Leeds.
Wow, I really enjoyed talking to Tony and to Peter. They're doing all sorts of fabulous work there. I'm sure you'll agree. I really do think that you're going to enjoy the song Fall Between. And as Peter has just explained, what a fabulous story. Do check out the podcast notes. Do have a click through and listen. Don't forget to let me know if you know of anyone who would make a great guest, or if you're a Leeds-based artist or musician, you can send me a track. In fact, these days, you don't even need to be Leeds-based, because I have a whole new series called Light On, which basically reflects light onto anybody who's not from Leeds. There are all sorts of different people there from all sorts of places in the world. And again, if you think you would make a great guest, or you know somebody who would, you can drop me an email at lightonleeds@gmail.com. Stay safe, Leeds. I love you all, and I will speak to you soon.
Walking the cushioned out road from the sea, view to the farms across the valley, yellow gorse, horizon, distant boat, walking the sea road from Waterford. When a stranger offers me a ride, seems he knows my cousin John. Now I know that in the glen everyone knows everyone. So see you down at Johnny Joe's, follow the road to where it goes, where the talk and the time and the music flow. See you down at Johnny Joe's, see you down at Johnny Joe's.
My mother sang me songs when I was a girl at an old piano on the other side of the world. Religions she loathed, their tawdry wars, but the tunes she loved, any Irish waltz. Though I've friends in this place I'm in, and I don't feel alone when I'm in that clear sea air. I know that I am home. See you down at Johnny Joe's, follow the tune to where it goes, and the talk and the time and the whiskey flows. See you down at Johnny Joe's, see you down at Johnny Joe's. the truth. What is lost can be redeemed. Here's to the things that fall between. Fall between.
Boat across the Irish Sea to Belfast, following my mother's voice back to the past. Man at the post office points me to the old house. Builder lets me in, shows me what he's found.
And there it is for me to read, an address in the glens of Antrim. As lost can be read.
Letters that had slipped between
the floorboards that I'm standing on. See you down at Johnny Joe's. Follow the road to where it goes, and the talk and the time and the music flows. See you down at Johnny Joe's. See you down at Johnny Joe's. Follow the tune to where it goes, and the talk and the time and the whiskey flows. See you down at Johnny Joe's.